Ramos. He's the Alpha, the first. This is DJ Nicholas on the show. When you hear the trumpet or the flute, know it's a battle. Time to put your vehicle in a drive, ready to travel. Like Mary, you are going to use your foot, it obstacle. When the war so easy, and me body. And when the God man them there, the man the look and the shot them there.
Greetings. Where the God man them there? Where the man them there? Well, welcome, man and man, from Moran Point to Nick Grill. Great to have you. It's March 4, 2026. And we're dealing with men dealing with trauma. Do men experience traumatic experiences? How do men deal with it? Well, men experience trauma differently due to societal, biological, and psychological factors. And healing often requires tailored approaches that address both emotional and physical impacts. Men often show trauma through externalizing behaviors rather than inward emotional distress. This can include anger, irritability, substance use, impulsive behavior, withdrawal from relationships, dissociation, and sleep disturbances. Trauma can also affect the body, leading to chronic muscle tension, pain in shoulders, chest, lower back, and digestive issues, reflecting unresolved emotional stress. Men are frequently exposed to specific traumatic experiences like combat and military service, with a higher risk of PTSD, that's post-traumatic stress disorder, and suicide. Witnessing or experiencing violence, which can impact self-esteem and trust, accidents, natural disasters like Melissa, or loss of loved ones, often accompanied by feelings of failure or grief. Also, childhood trauma, including abuse and neglect, which increases susceptibility to mental health issues later in life, and sexual abuse, which is often underreported due to stigma and can have severe long-term psychological effects. Well, this is the program designed for men with guests who are men, hosted by men, and it's aired every Wednesday unless it's a holiday at 5:30 p.m. right here on Love 101, your family station. It's the Maybox. I'm Kevin Bailey, my co-host right here.
Courtney George Morrison. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you today? Welcome to the program, The Rock, and to all our listeners, thanks for making it Love 101 and making it your station of choice. We're talking about men dealing with trauma. No matter how nice we look, we deal with it here. Men dealing with trauma often experience unique challenges due to social expectations, leading to suppression of emotions, isolation, anger, and risky behaviors. Common symptoms include PTSD, substance abuse, social withdrawal, and physical unexplained pain. Today, our special guest, Mr. Osborne Bailey, a counseling psychologist, will share on how effective tailored treatment, including therapy, can lead to actionable coping strategies for men to overcome their challenges, especially after that lady called Hurricane Melissa. So stay tuned. We have a show lined up for you today.
That's right, Courtney. So just want to share with our listeners, both here and overseas, a little bit about Osborne Bailey, counseling psychologist. Reverend Osborne, Pastor Bill Bailey, is pastor, Bible teacher, lecturer, seminar facilitator, psychologist, and author. Osborne Bailey is a behavioral psychologist and mental wellness therapist for over 24 years. He has also served as adjunct tertiary level lecturer in a wide range of behavioral science courses. Mr. Bailey has also been instrumental in the development of a range of psychometric intervention tools to work with people who have been exposed to trauma. He is also a trained restorative justice practitioner. He formerly serves as the director of the Victim Services Branch in the Ministry of Justice. Presently, Osborne Bailey is an associate counseling psychologist with Family Life Ministries, where he continues to offer professional support and counseling services to individuals and families. And by the way, FLM is one of the largest counseling centers in the Caribbean. Osborne Bailey has been a committed Christian for over 48 years and a pastor for over 48 years and the author of Personal Evangelism, Resharpening the Edge of the Church's Evangelistic Sword, parts 1 and 2. These books are described as personal evangelism game changers. We have an amazing person with us today, Courtney, as our guest. Welcome, Sir Osborne Bailey. Welcome again on the main box.
Well, I'm happy to be here, but when I hear how much information I have already, I just come to say amen and say the benediction.
Welcome, Sir Bailey. Good to have you. I said something earlier. I said, welcome to the mailbox, to the rock, and not the mailbox. We are on the mailbox. Yesterday I did the rock, so apologies there. We are on the mailbox. As long as I didn't say gospel tonight, I'm good. So you have to forgive me sometimes I say other names, but we are on the mailbox. So man, remember, we want to hear from you. We're live on Facebook and YouTube at Love 101 FM Jamaica. Remember, you can leave your comments via our WhatsApp line at 876-997-3125 or call our studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328. Also, we are on TikTok at Love 101 FM Jamaica. It's going to be a great show today.
And we want to say hello to the ladies. Ladies, we can't do it without, So this is how you can participate. We want you to answer the question. How do you handle traumatic situations that create stress, grief, and hurt in your life? How do you handle traumatic situations that create stress, grief, and hurt in your life? You can participate in the program by leaving us a message via WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube. Ladies, remember, no calls or voice notes are allowed. Allow the men them to leave the voice notes and the call, all right? But you can participate on the other social media platforms. So, Sir Osborne, we normally give a shout out to the listeners. And so the ritual we have, after we count to 3, we simply say, Mandea. So we're just going to ask you, you're a sophisticated English gentleman, but we're going to ask you to join with us with a patwa by simply saying Mandea after 3. 1, 2, 3.
Mandea!
Yeah. Straight. The real Jamaican language, not the Queen's English or whoever that created that one, but Mandea. So before we get into the main discussion, though, it's now time for us to get into the segment we dub Draft. That's a direct response for the featured theme, where we preliminary open the way to our main segment. Here's a question we want to ask you, Sir Bailey. Should we be concerned about the traumatic experiences that our men go through? Yes or no, or yea or nay? With explanation, please, sir.
Yes, we have to be concerned. There's no doubt, especially since men are often perceived as what we call silent victims or of trauma. In other words, you are traumatized when the perspective is that we are supposed to be big and strong. And yes, every man, whether I'm big, whether I'm strong and tall, and rich, and handsome, he experiences trauma as long as he has all his emotional gifts and sensors. And I have news for you. We normally talk about 5 senses, but modern psychology will tell you, say, up to 53 senses. These are how we receive information from the outside world. And if you feel that you can't manage, I want to hear the word.
Man.
Right? If you can't manage all of this that is coming, you feel overwhelmed. You can't cope. Right? That is trauma right there, slowly coming through the roof, through the window, under the door, coming into your psyche. And unfortunately, it's not like you can see it with your natural eye or so you can take it to the doctor and treat it. And even if you could have seen it, you go as a man to say you have it. You're going to hear, but sit down, But it is very real when we are faced with things that we feel is too much. All time Jamaica say more upon plenty. So Melissa was more upon plenty. When you see your hard work in a few hours, if so long, blow down, you see your wife and you sit to them, ball, you can't do nothing. And you have to still be strong when it is clear that you are not strong enough to manage those things. It is trauma, right? And it can result from, as you were saying, a whole lot of things. But since you said so much, if now are the time allow, because I say, you have a part of your brain called your amygdala. This is what manages all the external things. And if that external thing, can imagine a funnel is taking in more than it can process. Things are happening on a daily basis and complicated things you don't understand. I said things, for example, we can have relational things. We can have processing mental mind things. We can have abuse things. We can have past things from you were children. Remember, from your 2, whatever is happening to you, even if you can't explain, you can't recall it, When you're 4, you have a few little words in your vocabulary you can explain it with. But by the time you're 7, you know where you're going, but nobody not ready to listen to you yet. So you carry as a bag what we call baggage. Right? And when baggage reaches to a certain level, we change the name to trauma. But by that time, it's sometimes too late and it becomes difficult, right? One single event can cause, one man can manage, can cause the next man to traumatize because it all results from how you build up. Your build up thing can have problems with what we call your fight, flight, fright mechanism, how it works. So one gunshot can traumatize you as well as you can live in a community where you hear gunshot every night and you can manage more. So who you going to tell now say you traumatized and everybody look like them can manage? So by not being able to tell anybody and explain, it becomes more complex and complicated to the point where we're not going to talk about self-help tips later on, if I'm allowed. You realize self-help tip can't help you. You need to go get help from some other source, right? And when we are battling trauma, sometimes it would be good if we have support. But unfortunately for many, that is the time when if you open your mouth, you might not necessarily, because of the culture. The culture just have a way where it expect men to be. And if you can't be like that. You notice a while ago when I say, time to say, Monday, program me if it sound like,
Yes.
No,
right?
program for sound like Kevin.
And the next thing will traumatize you.
You see what that? So we program men to be a lot of things that they don't necessarily. And how the brain to hardwire, the brain hardwire is in control. Not like anything that
Yes.
appears to be odd and different and complicated and complex, right? In fact, if you raise your right hand in the room, everybody online, and try to go clockwise with your right hand, and then take your right foot and go, I'm not sure what I do it. That's how I go. I take your right hand and go clockwise, and then take your right foot and try to go anti-clockwise. You would realize your brain can ever manage 2 complications.
Brother Osborne, put a pause on that. We're coming back. We're taking our first break. We're going to go to the studio. Courtney and Kevin in the place of very special guest, Osborne Bailey. We'll be right back after this.
101 FM, the family station. It's It's 5:45.
What would you do with your share of $1 million? Join the JMB Goal Saver Challenge between now and March 7, 2026 and get a chance to win your share. Open a Jamaican dollar bonus saver savings or Gilt Edge unit trust account online with $20,000 and add $20,000 or more each month for 6 months for your chance to win. Sign up today at promo.jmnb.com/jmnb-goal-saver. JMNB Goal Saver Challenge. Let's achieve your goals together. Promotion authorized under Section 58.3 of the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Act.
Gee, you know say Mike no come.
Hold on.
No, sir. That sound like consumption.
What that?
Tuberculosis, aka TB.
Now all time something like that. After nobody now get that again.
So you think TB still about?
If you have a cough for more than 2 weeks with fever, night sweats, and weight loss, go to your doctor or health center and get tested now. Let's be vigilant and stop the spread of TB infections. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
I am a man, yes. Strong man, integrity man. I am a man.
Welcome back to the program, The Mailbox. You're here live on Love 101, celebrating 33 years. We are having our most exciting time, innovative, creative, educational time with Mr. Osborne Bailey, a counseling psychologist. We're always talking about men who experience trauma. What does it look like? And before we went for the break, he was trying to show us how our brain was hardwired. With moving your hands counterclockwise and clockwise and everything. Sir Bailey, go ahead. Continue with where you left off. We want to hear more about this hardwiring.
Yeah, let me even get deeper into some of the complications. So there are some emotions, for example, that you'll be surprised. So fear is associated with anxiety, confusion. So let's say a man will live in a situation where he experience fear. Melissa, fearful can come out of it. But that thing work like an orange. So the one fear can trigger what we call anxiety, which is different. Fear is when the storm are gone. Anxiety is after the storm, you have to go deal with the reality and the memory. And so people if you go explain, say, storm from when? November? Or somewhere around September, you still are traumatized over it. That's very difficult. But once you're into the anxiety phase, then the fear is associated with being insecurity. Just think of all of these words and how much of men will be able to say, I am going through that. Confusion, insecurity, inferiority is associated with trauma. Suspicion. This is a country where suspicion is not mad. With another program, we can talk about that. You know, are you the only one? Are you the main one? Right? You just walking around in circles. You know, so that can lead to trauma too. Right? You know, walking around and certain people see you and it's the feeling that you're under suspicion. No, I'm going this route because, you know, we normally want to talk about trauma is for weak men, but we know a strong man go through suspicion, right? Feeling of being helpless. Trauma can be reflected in like anger things, like hostility can be a mask for trauma, right? When you're distant from people who can care for you, so that means when you go through trauma, you're by yourself. Trauma, right? When you're constantly in a bitterness and war and problems, it puts you on the edge, not to be in charge, but to be traumatized. You know that happiness can also, things that should trigger happy can cause trauma. So here for some men now, find you know one relationship and you always in one thing where you do spirit tech and all of a sudden now you're being asked to come into a genuine love and all of your things throw into, you know the thing called marriage?
Boy.
And that they're talking about. You all of a sudden have to go throw in your heavy thing now, in the thing. Trauma we're talking about. What should be happy. So I don't want men listening to things that would have start about, you know, gunshots and problems and, you know, those things. They're everyday things. You know, you have to go finally trust everybody. Somebody wrong you and you have to go forgive them just to get into a place of genuine forgiveness. can cause trauma. Now I mention those because I want us to appreciate that trauma can occur to everybody, every man who is connected. In fact, once you're connected, genuinely connected, you have to be prepared to manage trauma. That means that you are in love, you have respect for, you are in a protective relationship with, and anything can happen that can destabilize your sense of in control, which is a part of trauma. Right?
So tell us, Brother Osborne, boy, there's so many things that you're talking about, and the men who are listening, share with us what is really trauma? Because you mentioned quite a lot of things, and the audience is surprised for the men, for instance, feeling inferior, like how that plays out. But for the man listening, how him know then, because if him feel inferior, how that tie in with all trauma.
All right. So in layman's term, and I will actually also use some practical things so that we can leave with a sense of once you're in a dynamics where you register, so in control, and your coping mechanism not sufficient to deal with that. So let's say I walk down the road and a man stick you up, and you experience that trauma because you're not in control, because you realize that them control you, and you go home, and then because it registers, so you're really not in control, you start to go through what we call anxiety now, because when you're in the stick up a fear, we call that traumatized by fear. Then you're traumatized by anxiety. So it's an emotional state. It has, physical implications, but it's largely an emotional state where you feel say you're not in control in the face of danger. So think about trapped in a prison. And the time when you say you should have come out, the door is not open. Trauma we are talking about. Think about carrying a heavy load and it on your head and you can't carry it no more, but you can't put it down. Think about being beaten by an invisible force. You don't know where the lick them going to come from. You don't know when they're going to come. Think about being pulled apart and you feel like, boy, it's too much and it's not going to stop. Thinking about climbing a mountain at my age, at 65, right? And the mountain look like anybody can climb it because the younger ones are just moving like, say, it's a level. But you won't feel like you're climbing a mountain. But I want to say this, trauma is like an illness. I find the best way for us to see it and accept it is that, nobody don't want sick. Nobody don't want to call down sick on themselves. You can't look on a man and say, boy, you shouldn't get that sickness, or you shouldn't sick so bad, or your diabetes shouldn't treat you like that, your hypertension. But trauma is really to be perceived as a mental illness. Something is really not right up in the head, because it's in the head up here, it is happening, that really you don't have the power, potential, resources, oftentimes to get out by yourself. That is why we use terms like we have battle trauma. It's like a battle, it's like a warfare. And that is why you have things like post-traumatic stress disorder, which is associated with people who have been at war, because there's a special kind of trauma that is associated with people who was at a war zone, and then even after the war done, they still fight some sort of a mental, emotional war. So I want that to be pictured in person's head so they can say, yeah, I feel like my life is like a trap for me. I feel like I'm carrying a load. I feel like I'm being beaten by an invisible force. I feel like I'm being pulled apart in many different directions. That is why a man must only have one woman. You can see yourself a whole heap of trauma virus. Let go off of the whole heap of ends. I put in that.
Word.
But I traumatize myself no further with the whole heap of
I'm just loving I'm just loving the descriptions you're giving, especially the one about being beaten by an invisible force.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So for the men who are listening, the men who are listening after hearing those descriptions, I know I'm hearing these descriptions and they are impacting me. How? Because before we look at it, time is gone. You talk about PTSD. How does one get past? How does one protect? So how does one protect? How does one get past? Are there any anti-traumatizing mechanism that we can develop for those who probably have not yet experienced some of these debilitating acts? Is there anything we can take to build up our immune system to ensure that even when the overwhelming thing comes, we are able to deal with it?
Well, you mean apart from keeping one wife, right?
Yeah.
Apart from the one wife, sir.
So I've been
What?
laying the
Solomon
foundation for a solution.
experience stress to a great level.
Right. So and that's having laid the foundation. Let me just go through some stuff. We can spend some time deal with them one on one. But certainly one of the and I'm going to start with self-help tip first. Because I could have just start with saying you need to go see a professional. You need to get by a counselor. You get seen by a medical doctor. Perhaps to the extent where some people might need to be seen by a psychiatrist. Right? But I want to start with self-help things that people can do. And one of the things we can do is to admit that you are being traumatized.
Mm.
Admit. We just
Admitted.
spend a lot of time um talking about what it is and where it look
Yeah.
like, where it feel like. Climb over the stigma wall, climb over the reluctant wall, climb over the label that I'm going to label your wall, open the door and admit that something was said that touch a nerve and you want to believe that you are traumatized. And literally, sometimes you might can't put your finger on it, but say things to yourself right now. Like it says on a scale of 1 to 10 with what was just said. 10 being I am most traumatized, 1 I am not. Say to yourself, look yourself in the mirror and say, what would that number would I give myself? Right? So that is 1, admit. Then what you want to try to do, if it's possible, check your phone and see if you have any friend in there that can help you to form what we call a non-judgmental, safe relational space. So you can further explore. So you take up your phone and say, Virgin, me the depth on my mailbox and hear something. I'm want to feel say, may I go through something where why no good, it no go down, sit down right in my head. And then when your friend asks you why, you say, well, I'm facing, I go through a trauma. If you're a good Jamaican from the inner, you say, I go through a drama,
Drama. Yes.
right? Because so we see it, right? And then now, your intent, once you agree that, is to take steps. What I say? Take steps to normalize as best as you can. And when you step them doing work, just like how we have children and we tell them for the try to walk and one of them too young for work. Nothing wrong for take a hold on and to get where. I mean, I at my age now, I still sometimes I'm making some moves. I'm comfortable with my son who is younger than me. If he's walking with me, gently make sure that he walk behind me in case. So you have to believe. So what you want is to normalize, not to cover it up. So what does that mean?
Hey, Osborne.
Yeah.
I think you better pause again. We're up on our next break. So, yeah, Kevin and Courtney in the place. So, special guest Osborne Bailey. We take a break, go to studio, then we'll be right back.
Strong man, integrity man, I am a man. Hey man, I am a man, I am a man, I am a man, yes.
Sometimes all we need is a listening ear. The listening ear, the counseling, the logical reasoning, and spiritual guidance are what appeal to us. That's why I'm here. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, the counselor, your counselor on Love 101 FM, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. You know you can call on me. I will listen and more. So let's talk about what's bothering you. Anything. Tune in, listen, call in. text or voice message. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, counseling psychologist, ready with a listening ear, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. Right here on the family station, Love 101 FM.
Jamaica live good, yeah. I make we enjoy life, what we feel safe at night. Jamaica live good.
Jamaica, stop the killing and give up the guns. Just live good now.
The time brought to you by the Ministry of National Security and Peace is 6 o'clock.
I am a man, yes. Strong man, integrity man. I am a man.
Welcome back. This is the Mailbox. Here
Welcome
every
back.
Wednesday,
Welcome back.
5:30 p.m. on your favorite gospel station. Kevin and Courtney in the place of very special guest, Mr. Osborne Bailey, counseling psychologist at Family Life Ministries. Now, before we took the break, Sir Osborne, you're taking us through and put a pause. So I unpause it. Please continue for us.
So we were talking about steps that can be taken. We say that one of the things that needs to happen, we need to create a clear, non-judgmental space where people can feel that they can get help. But I want to even further define what that means. Because normally, when we define clear, safe space, we want to start to hear the vocabulary that says, I am not coming in because I am weak or sick. I am coming in because I am resilient, I am strong, and I know when I need help, I must come for help. That is not weakness, that is strength. You want to associate the help with being responsible, because coming in to get help is not weakness, it's responsible behavior. Coming in to get help is a third thing called self-care. So you want to phrase the help. And I want every man listening to realize that we are offering, not exposing men to men's weakness. We are offering opportunity on the program this evening for there to be resilience, responsible, and self-care. So when a woman is going to encourage the man in her life, in whatever role he plays, to come in, use these terms. You are being resilient when you come. You are being responsible when you come. You are demonstrating that you care about yourself and by extension us. So those are some of the phrases. But practical steps. We encourage what we call a physical dimension of care. What does that mean? Adjust your sleep thing. Because remember me, I deal with self-care first, you know. Adjust your sleep habit. Right? Literally, you should try to program yourself to get your 8 hours so that when you are sleeping, the whole heap of brain work, unless your brain is like a coconut, we don't want water in it, you don't need no sleep, right? But if it is a real brain, you know, if it's a real brain.
What about the person though, Sir Bailey, what about the person who is having flashbacks and can't fall asleep? What does he do?
Well, you're getting into the level now, we're going to talk about professional help, so we don't want to get to that yet. What we want to get to,
Okay,
even if you're fighting on the front line as a soldier in Ukraine, are you telling me you are going to be able to fight 3 weeks without sleep? 3 days without sleep? You're going to die, kill yourself. The Russians don't have to kill you. You're going to kill yourself. So, to program yourself to get, and I'm going to say sleep and rest. So, and I'm not treating them as the same. You should try to get sleep, and if you're not getting any sleep, at least get some rest. What that mean? Turn off the blue lights, whichever ones they are, your phone or your TV, and turn off the other lights and put your head under a pillow or put one of those, you know, fancy thing. I was going to say girly thing, but this is not a girly thing program.
No.
Put something over your eyes, so block out the room. The room is very dark. Turn off the light and try to get some physical rest. Increase it. Let's say you not get none at all. Increase it by even an hour, 2 hours, but ultimately you should aim to be in a program of what we call increase rest. Physically, avoid harmful substance, because one of the things that when we're doing the trauma and stress, right, we tend to return to sources that are harmful substance. You know, we still have the feeling to liquor and weed and other cigarette and other harmful substance. You know, we don't we can call sex a harmful substance, but you know, turn to some other means. So even though that might help, assuming your trauma does not prevent you from getting up and ready, which it can, right? But you should avoid harmful substance. Here are some practical things. Take a piece of paper and write down your daily routine to see if there's anything in it you can take out of your daily routine, or call declutter your life. Right? See if there are things that you can cut off, and physically go through you people them who you interact with on a daily basis and see if some of them people trigger your stress more than help you to temper your stress and your trauma. And literally you have to just kind of level the stressors them out of your life. Yeah? You have to reduce, call them triggers. And you know you can't really stand up in front of a trigger that can just fly off like that. So you try to reduce your interaction. But this reducing of interaction might not even mean physical, but you don't make sure you turn off your brain, the part of the brain that is causing them to make you feel more stress. Right? So those are some very practical things. But here are the simple practical things. Call it stress management. Breathing. Remember, call it by the simple name. It's called manage the breathing. Do you know that a simple breathing exercise that don't take 20 seconds to do one revolution of can help to reduce some of the implications behind trauma? So I was working with a group and I said to them, they said, how am I going to take this? Because I work in a financial institution and clients are always coming in. And I says, let me show you 20 seconds between clients. Is that going to cause the institution between each client? I said, that's the time that a client take from the seat where in the line where they are to come to the window where you are. And you can breathe in for 4 or 5 seconds. You can hold that breath for 6, 7 seconds. And you can breathe out for 7, 8 seconds with your eyes closed. Before you do the breathing though, ask yourself, what is your greatest source of happiness? And when you start the breathing, you focus on that thing. So 5 seconds. If you're listening to me now, just think about what is your greatest source of happiness. And that, for example, is what you're going to think. And then you take 5 seconds while you're thinking about it, inhaling, 6 to 7 seconds exhaling, thinking about your greatest source of happiness, and 6 to 7 holding, and 7 to 8 breathing out. I guarantee you, when you are doing that, you will have no other thoughts in your mind but that thing that brings you happiness, and that is helping. Now, this don't need no money spent a doctor yet, you know. This don't need nothing. Here's another simple thing. Hope it will work for some it might not work. Draw a circle, right? Put your name in at the middle of the circle, your initials. Ask yourself, in the different sphere that you have, relational connection, family, friends. Hope you have a church one, right? And you put the initials of people who would be in those circles and spend much of your day connecting with those people. But have another person that you should put in the circle. Put yourself. What kind of relationship you have with yourself? Are you happy with yourself? Are you comfortable with yourself? Are you doing the best with yourself? Ask yourself this question. Does your happiness have a right to sit with you and laugh with you?
Osborne, a question that people ask, suppose your work is your stress, is a stressor. Your work is what is triggering you, but you need the work. You have to pay the bills them. You have to take care of the family and the 10 dogs them. Now, how you manage that? Help the listeners and that one, Brother Osborne.
All right, so there are many ways we cannot go this. Remember now, stress is going on in the brain. It's not going on in the workplace. This is going on in the brain. It's not going on in the work. It is going on at the work, but not in the work. It is what and how you manage, right? So when I have to see a client who is at a workplace stress, I say to the client, what is happening at the first stage when your amygdala is working to end you up at stress because of the work? It strips the emotional experience you're having and it focuses on the negative ones. And then it is sent to the funnel that is going into your brain. Negative, 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 negative. But I'm asking that person, because a real question you're asking, is it at all possible that you could also think, see, sum up the positive and set to the negative? Hold on, man. And me a run the you never go through a roadblock when I'm fix road and you have some stop and go people and have on the vest to run the stop and go. You can't say to yourself, say, hold on. We need to let through some other man through this road. Right? And whilst we are at work, we need to let some of the other person through the road. What's the other person talking about? The things that says, I am worthwhile. I can give you a list of them that we can list. I am capable of managing my stress. I am letting that through the road right now. I am in control of my thoughts and feelings coming through the road. Right? I am worthy of love and acceptance like anybody else at the workspace coming through the road. Right? I am strong and I can overcome obstacles. I want even 2 hours to come in, take a little while and focus on yourself. I know which direction is progress. But if we are supposed to be managing the road and we are letting sad, fear, unhappy, stress, who is problem from, who is not problem. Other client who every time his boss call him say from the boss call me name, me stress. I said to him, so what if you didn't let in at the time when you hear the call, the person in your head that says, I am capable of managing my activities, my stress. If you don't have that in your head though, then there's nothing to call. So we have to get some of those things. And that is when some people might need professional help, because if they don't have no sense of, for example, I have the power to change me. If you can't think that, if you can't think I can steer my life back to peace, or I have a right to be happy, who should not be able to say, I may not be happy, but I have a right to my own happiness in our workplace. So to those persons who will say it is happening anywhere it's happening, at war, on the battlefield, I got me show you, because you might think they're making up this, Have you ever seen people who are at war being interviewed sometime, and during the interview, the war is still going on, them laughing in the interview? Them talking about, some kind of man asks them about, how is your family? Man, them say, oh man, miss my daughter, and he's laughing and so on. So my brother said, how do you manage when you hear all this gunshot? He said, well, I'm just ducking I keep my head down and pretend somebody is a tree branch. I hope they don't see me and they laugh. The war is still going on. But during that time, they are focusing on the positive instead of the negative. Get them to laugh. They don't associate themselves at the time with people who are focusing on the negative. That is not good for them. They believe they have a right to be happy. They can steer their life back to peace. That is a belief. Because if you do not have this positive self-affirmation, period, when the thing passes your emotions, it trickles them down to your hippocampus, which causes you to believe some things about yourself. Believe say you're defeated.
Let's stick a pin there with that hippocampus, Sir Bailey. Let's go for our final break. And when we come back, because we want to hear what that is about, and we want everybody to get a full understanding about the positive. Reverend Bailey is saying, think about the positive while you're in the storm. and indeed feed your brain those messages. We're on our final break. This is the Mailbox. I'm Pastor Courtney Morris sitting with Kevin Bailey. Our guest is Mr. Osborne Bailey. It's 6 afternoon. Come back.
Me just never did I get through with no work, and me did I get desperate. Till one day me see one ad, but them want somebody for work at a massage parlor. Trust me, the place was nothing like them advertised. From the very first day, I had to be giving much more than massages.
Verify the legitimacy of job advertisements with the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. To report suspected cases of human trafficking, call the nearest police station, 119 or 888-PROTECT. A message from the Ministry of National Security and Peace.
This is Love 101 FM, the family station. It's 6:15.
I am a man, yes. Strong man, integrity man. I am a man.
Welcome back. This is the Mailbox, here every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. on your favorite gospel station. Courtney and Kevin in the place, and our very special guest, counseling psychologist Osborne Bailey. Mr. Osborne, you have really been given enormous nuggets and direction, and we want to get in as much as we can. So let's continue. Before we went for the break, you were kind of giving the link of negative thinking and what that can do, the hardwiring, and how we can change it. So continue, Sir Osborne.
Yes, so we started by saying that we have to recognize the importance of positive affirmation. It's not wishful thinking. You are basically speaking some truth to the power of trauma. And you know the thing about speaking truth to power, sometimes the power is not operating out there. The power is operating, and I constantly want them to realize that it's in the head, that this thing is traumatizing. So you want to make sure, so because after the negative emotions get let in, they are going to convince you or try to convince you of some things. It's going to make it start to think some things about yourself. Right? So you end up now parts of your brain that should be working to make you into your brain into a gold mine. Where you can mine riches from. If you don't do the positive self-affirmation and then ask yourself, what really am I despite my trauma? Who am I really despite my failure, my weakness? Right? Am I still man? Do I have lost my leg? Do I have lost my job? Do I not able? Because once you start to believe those things about yourself, we're heading, Kevin and Courtney, we're heading to depression, and depression lead to other things we never want to call. Just not give anybody any ideas. So you have to start ask yourself, what does this thing cause me to believe about myself? And there's another, I will try to do this in a very short moment. So there's another fancy thing where we have to watch. So how much thing would have happened in your life in a week? Why it's so easy to recall the negative? Or in a year, or in a month? Because how the negativity is connected, it has to be constantly be reminded of positivity. And so we have to literally control what things are available for us to recall every now and again, despite the trauma. I suggest go outside, literally, and just look around your yard and see if there is anything that is beautifully, fearfully, and wonderfully made. And you will realize that as you're searching for something of beauty, you're actually working to build capacity to manage trauma. And these are self-help tips, because I say I'm trying to focus on self-help. But I'm going to say something which is also simple, because I want things are so simple. Take an ordinary bottle, water bottle that you would normally drink out the water out and thing. You're going to try now to not only feel your trauma, but you want to create the opportunity for you to see your trauma. And you're going to pour some water in the bottle that represents the amount of trauma operating in the system. If you pull up the buckle, trauma till you can't traumatize no more. If you empty the buckle, you're in control. And what you will spend some of your time doing is making sure that the bottle gets emptier and emptier, and you are fighting this volume in the bottle to reduce it. And you are asking yourself what works from what don't work. And you try to use that one bottle. Why? Because you know, build capacity, not just to feel trauma, but to see trauma. It's no longer a monster that is operating invisible, beating you and you don't know it. You are seeing this literally in a bottle of water that you are saying, wait a second. When I call Tom, I feel better. When I call John, I don't feel good. John, we're not going to talk much. When I spend some time doing A, I feel better. B, I don't feel so better. And you can literally know track with your own eyes. Now, you might say, this is foolishness, but that Naaman did say to him, say a foolishness. And his brethren did come to Naaman and say, but big man, if the big man did tell you to go do a big work, you would have go do it. Come over here with the trauma, with your leprosy. And it might not work the first day and our second day and our third day. In fact, it was 7 times before him get the thing. So me advise you now to go join a program like Naaman, where you can go see for yourself. So your trauma is being measured, can be measured projectively, and that you find a way. But because I don't want time run out, I'm going to say this. I want to also point to the thing which I think is helpful, to learn to build your spiritual man, your spirit man when we are going through trauma. It's in the Bible, cast your care upon him because he cares for you. You understand? Well, that's how we attack. We run into the shelter, right, that God provides by his love and his grace and so on. And allow God to have the final say. What do I mean by that? Look at what Daniel did when they threatened him, say, boy, lions then you go, Him say, boy, you can put me anywhere you want to put me, but the final say in my life is God going to have my final say. So he went to the land and get delivered. Joseph said, boy, I don't care what kind of pleasure afford me, I allow God to have the final say. David had a Goliath, big, strong, soldier from him was a boy. When the king and him brother say, you're traumatized, with your plan to go fight this giant. And him said, no, he was a soldier he was a boy, but me is a boy who has been a servant of God, and I am not settling. I am going to face this. We're talking about allowing God to have the final say in the midst of whatever is traumatizing us. The truth be told, mankind was not made to be strong all by himself without God. And so somewhere in the drama journey, we have to ask and assess ourselves, where are we on this spiritual journey with God? Because some of the time the question is about not what is happening to us, but who we are becoming as a result of trauma. And that question needs to be asked, where am I on my spiritual journey when I am being traumatized? These are existential questions that needs to be answered. Because trauma is not just physical, trauma is also, maybe even for those who might not be Christian listening, it's metaphysical. It's not just what is happening to the body and so on and so forth. There is a non-physical part of us that is also part of the trauma. So the question is, if the non-physical part have anything to do with spiritual, should not trauma management include the question, where am I on my spiritual journey? And the last thing I'm going to say, well, if I have the time, think not only on helping yourself, but once in the midst of trauma, we're still talking about self-help. Ask yourself, is there anybody I can help? Turn the focus not away from just getting help to a focus on being a source of help to somebody and really become a brother's keeper in the midst of the trauma. Call not just to hear somebody say something good to you, but when you're being traumatized, call to say something good to somebody else. If these self-help tips does not work, you're going to need professional help. That means, and when you know you need it, if you start thinking about harming yourself, if your depression get too much, you can't do none of the activity that we're talking about. if you're going through what we call uncontrollable panic, disorientation, you don't even know who you are, where you are at any given moment. You don't feel like running away from danger. You feel like running towards danger. You immediately need professional help. Why? Because one of the description of trauma is also like falling off a cliff. And when you start to fall, you're at the mercy of the depth from the top to the bottom, right? And the gravity of trauma is going to drag you down to the bottom. And the drop, you don't know what to go to your bones. And then when you drop, you can drop with many serious mental disorder that make trauma look like a joke, right? And the stress hormones start to get multiplied and cortisone start to get pull up your system. Then you get panic disorder, clinically depressed. I should be talking about children too, because we're talking about men as if you know have male boys. We can get what's called separation anxiety as a child, where you just feel clingy to people, and then you become a victim of people because you need people more than how people need you. Substance abuse. The famous one where we like to talk about is post-traumatic stress disorder. But one that I want to introduce it to is what we call dissociative identity disorder, the same thing we used to call split personality. Because under trauma, if you're not careful, you start to split off. I, Osborne Bailey, I've seen people split in as much as 6 different, when you would have called personality listening, but I know them called identity. 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 because of trauma. Somebody needed to have gone to see professional help earlier than this. Suicide ideation. We have problems controlling our addiction that is called impulse control. You can't help yourself from smoking, you can't help yourself from drinking, you can't help yourself from trying risky things in order to cope. So these are critical things why we need professional help.
Brother Osborne, it's a holy stuff. And I really appreciate it. We're gonna give a minute or so for you to kind of answer what can the church do to facilitate a safe space for men. But before you answer that, just want to say St. Catherine High School having their health fair, and it's gonna be Friday, March the 20th, 2026 at 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. This is a whole heap of things that can help you to de-stress and managing yourself as well. Holistic health check and lots of other RTs and so forth. So want to encourage persons that they can take that in as well. Sir, in half a minute, how can the men,
the church,
create a
I can quickly tell you, because as a behavioral psychologist, one of the critical things for us is what we call psychoeducation. We believe that just by helping people to understand what they are going through is a significant step in helping them to manage what they're going through. The church, pastors, I hope you're listening to me, facilitation of psychoeducation. See psychoeducation for stress and trauma as a form of evangelism, as a means to rescue people who are perishing and dying, and as a means to provide help. And Christ-centered, trauma-focused psychoeducation can save body, mind, and soul.
Wow.
Awesome. So we say thanks to our guest, Mr. Osborne Bailey, counseling psychologist, and to Jermaine Johnson, our producer, Niku Angus, for technical support. We end the show with this quote: "Adversity is always a partner of progress." John C. Maxwell said that.
That's it for sure. This week, catch you next week, Wednesday, March 11, 2026. Same place, same time, inside the mailbox. Thanks again, Sir Osborne Bailey. We normally say Monday up.
Blessings.
Hey, man.
man, I am a man, I am a man, yes. Strong man, integrity man, I am a man. I am a man, I am a man, I am a man, yes. Strong man, integrity man, I am a man. Hey man, I am a man, I am a man, I am a man, yes. Strong man, integrity man, I am a man.
You're to the Family Radio broadcasting from Kingston, Jamaica. We're Love 101 FM. It's now 6:30 p.m.